it's a real experience and a new experience to me to speak to an E-Club. And this is fun. I'm glad there's people around because it makes it a little easier to do it this way. I'm here to talk to you about the Rotary Foundation, and I hope you understand that our foundation goes hand in hand with Rotary. Let me tell you a few stories. When I joined Rotary, I was pretty well started in my middle age of my life, and I really didn't understand service. In particular, I didn't understand the value of service in my own life. What could I do to make a difference in this world? Maybe some small act of kindness. Maybe I could run my business so my employees could benefit. What could I do all by myself? Well, I was trying to live the good life, living as morally and ethically as I could, but for some reason it didn't feel like that was enough. I guess my Rotary sponsor saw something in me, the potential to be a Rotarian, because I don't think I had it when I joined Rotary. But he saw something, and Rotary gave me a tremendous gift of bringing it out of me. And I got into Rotary, and I thought, what could my little Rotary Club do to make a difference in the world? Slowly, after many experiences, it started to become more and more clear, and I started to understand the value of Rotary to me and hopefully to people around me. I guess my first experience with the Rotary Foundation was a group study exchange we did with Korea. And we hosted, our Rotary Club hosted the Korean team, and I got one of the young ladies to stay with us. And it was really interesting to learn about other parts of the world and meet other people from other parts of the world, learn what they did, how their cultures worked. And it reminds me a little bit of a past Peace Corps volunteer that I'd been talking to. And he said, you know, people are the same all over the world. And I agreed with him. He said, but cultures are very different. And indeed they are. The Rotary Club and the Rotary Foundation tends to bring these people together from all over the world and bring them together on a person-to-person basis where we are all the same. Well, I started seeing the value of a foundation, and mostly because I'd made new friends from somewhere else, and I had fun, and I started to understand a different part of the world. When I went to my governor-elect training in Lafayette, Louisiana, we started our governor-elect training on 9/11 of '01. It was once again, as it was with all of us, it was a very moving and scary experience to see that the world has changed at that time. Shortly after that attack, I got an email from a district governor in Bahrain, Imad Amoyed, had sent me this heartfelt message of condolence as to what our country was suffering and how he and the Rotarians in Bahrain really felt very badly for us and sent their consolations for our loss over here. And you know, coming from Bahrain, that meant a lot to me. It was something very different. Well, in my travels around the district, I'd mentioned this to a few of our Rotarians, and one of our Rotarians had told me that her grandfather had been working in Bahrain, passed away there, and was buried in Bahrain. And the family had lost track of where he was. And she said, is there any chance you can get a hold of this past governor and find out where my grandfather's buried? Well, I didn't think there was much of a chance, but I sent him a note and sent the name on to him. And sent along this young lady's name as well, young Rotarian's name as well. She called me up a few weeks later, all excited. She said she'd gotten a note from Imad Amoyed. They not only found her grandfather's grave, they had a special Rotary Club meeting at the gravesite to honor her grandfather. Every time at Christmas, and we just got through the Christmas season, and I know there's a lot of cards you got that said peace on earth, goodwill to man. We see that message every year. What are we doing about it? I think Rotary really helps us. One of our Rotary Club presidents, my year as governor was Doug Means from down at Park City. And Doug handed me this little letter that he'd handwritten out, just a small note, and said that he'd been strongly affected by what had happened on 9/11. And he said, you know, we ought to do something to commemorate this event so that we don't forget, something to memorialize the people that were lost in that event. And he said, maybe we could have a walk, a Rotary walk that would raise some money, and we could do something with it to do something positive about this event. So I took that little note to Anaheim with us. Our governors were getting trained in Anaheim that year. And I showed it to several of my district governors, and the idea caught on. And I got back to Dallas, and it more and more was looking like a good idea. And we appointed people around the district, and we had 6 regional walks to memorialize the event of 9/11. And we raised over $17,000 out of it. Well, the district governors from elsewhere in the country that decided to do this as well raised money, and we raised a total of $73,000. And we all felt what better to do than to send this money to the Rotary Centers for Peace and Conflict Resolution in the hopes that this money in the future would be able to prevent this from happening again. And that's one of the things that I believe very strongly in for Rotary. Somebody told me once about these Centers for Peace and Conflict Resolution, you know, we only have to hit one home run. We only have to find one Mahatma Gandhi, one person that's very special to change this world. And if we train them right and he has enough help from the other people, we can make a difference in the world. So I truly believe in that. One of my favorite things in Rotary was the group study exchange, and they don't have that anymore. It's no longer funded by the foundation, but they do have the vocational training teams. It's very similar to the group study exchange, and I really would encourage any club to sponsor a vocational training team, because you can learn a whole lot from it. Well, my year as governor, we still had group study exchanges, and Sherry and I had taken our honeymoon in the Caribbean, and for 18 years following that, we'd been back every year to the Northern Caribbean and got on a sailboat and went where the wind took us for a week or two. And we felt an attachment to that part of the world. We spent a few weeks in Anguilla. We'd been to different parts of the Caribbean, and we just loved this part of the world. And ever since I had dreamt of being district governor, I'd wanted to do my group study exchange with that part of the world. Well, as it would happen in my year, their district governor that year was from Haiti, named Amos de Rosier, and Amos was the second governor ever from Haiti, but the first one in recent years. And I thought, oh no, Haiti's a pretty rough place. But I was determined to make this match, and I got a hold of Amos, and we met with him down in San Antonio, and we made the deal to do the group study exchange with him. That year, my group study exchange team chairman was J.D. Grimm, and if y'all know J.D., he doesn't speak English very well, but he speaks wonderful French, and they speak French in Haiti, so he and Amos were a perfect match. And he came down, he drove down to San Antonio just to meet with us, and we did meet, had a great meeting, and got everything arranged. Amos had wanted us to spend the entire month on Haiti, but that district goes from St. Bart's on the east to the Cayman Islands on the west, and includes some of the garden spots of the world. It's just wonderful. And I said, Amos, can we spend some time in other parts of the district? And he asked where, and I said, well, St. Bart's, St. Martin, Anguilla would be, really nice. And he said, I can do that. When you have a district conference down in Haiti, they have their district conference, they have their pets, and they have their district assembly all at the same time. That district has islands from all over the world, or I mean all over the district. They're thousands of miles apart. So they all come together. They all come together for one time and do all of their business on one island at one time. So we were going to need to spend 2 weeks in Haiti. Well, I learned a bunch of lessons out of this, and I think all for the better. The the first one was that Amos had, when he was going to send his team, rather than send members from all over the district, he sent his 4 team exchange members, and their team leader were all from Haiti. Well, I wasn't expecting much. We've all heard about Haiti. We've seen the problems they got. We got the most educated, articulate, polite, and as good a group study exchange team that we've ever gotten in this district from Haiti to come visit us. Now, we needed to get people to go down there for our end of the group study exchange, and you know, it's kind of hard, those of you that have done this, it's hard to recruit people to take a month off of their time and go study in another part of the world at the best of places. So we advertised, let's take a month of training in the vocational training and cultural exchange in the Northern Caribbean, which sounds a lot better than going to Haiti, and we got a good team put together. We really got a good team put together. The first lesson I learned was that all Haitians are not illiterate, and some of them are extremely well-educated, articulate people. The second thing I learned was when our team got back from Haiti, and I talked to them, and they said to me, Pete, you know, St. Bart's, Anguilla, St. Martin, they were wonderful. They were just great. But we're really, really grateful that we got to go to Haiti, and that's what meant the most to us. That was lesson number 2. About 10 o'clock in the morning on the Monday after the Chicago Centennial Convention, I was back in Dallas at my office, and I got an email from one of the team members from Haiti, and he said that Amos DeRosier, their district governor, had been kidnapped. They'd hit him over the head at the university he was teaching at, dragged him out of the school through the locked gates they got into, and demanded $400,000 ransom for him. I got a hold of JD because JD could speak the French again and was very familiar with all of them. And about noon, he got a hold of Arlette, Amos's wife. And she was beside herself. She said they were torturing Amos in the background while they were demanding this money, but she said the good news is that they've come down on their ransom demands from $400,000 to $40,000. Which is quite a drop, but nobody in all of Haiti might not have $400,000. There's not any money there. And they certainly didn't have that kind of money, but she had friends down there, and she was hopeful to get there. Well, if you would ask me on the Sunday before if I would ever send money to a kidnapper, I would have said not in a million years. But this was different. It was a different country. It was a friend, a Rotarian friend, and an extremely good person that was worth saving. So I got a hold of 2 other friends, J.D. Grimm in town and Gilbert Brown, past Governor Gilbert Brown, and told them about it because they were very involved with the group study exchange, and J.D. knew about it. And between us, we'd resolved to send them $5,000 to help Arlette out. So JD finally got a hold of Arlette about 3:30 in the afternoon. This all happened very quick, and she was just ecstatic. She said, JD, we got him free. JD said, oh, that's wonderful. She said one of the local department stores had given an entire day's take, the bank deposit to us. We have to pay him back, but they'd given it all to us to help get him out, and they'd settled for $34,000, and we got him home. She said, do you want to talk to him? JD said, sure, I'd love to talk to him. And he got Amos on the phone. He says, Amos, I'm so glad that you're back home. And Amos, he knew that he'd been beat up pretty good. He didn't know the extent of it. But he said, Amos, we got some money to help you. He said, we've got $5,000. How can we get that to you? And Amos said, well, I think you can send an electronic bank deposit to me. And JD said, how do I do it? And he said, I'll have to find out. I'll let you know. And JD said, I got a new email address. He said, let me give it to you. Amos said, I have to give you back to Arlette. I can't write. They broke all my fingers. It's not one world. Well, we did send him that money. We got a hold of different Rotary clubs in town that had hosted the team, and they all coughed up another $5,000 to help, and a little more than that, which we wired down to help Amos pay back his debts, help his children go to college, the things that he'd given up for that. Amos was a very special person. He could live in Canada if he chose to. His wife and children were all Canadian citizens. They spoke French. They got along fine up in Montreal, but he was a patriot. And he felt like he could make a difference where he lived, and that's why he lived in Haiti, because that was his home. What we did ensured that he could stay at his home and ensured that he could make a difference in this world. And that group study exchange didn't intend that we were going to do that, but that was the result of it, and it was a very special thing. I gotta say one thing about this, and you learn a lot about your spouse in Rotary as well. And I'd spent that money without telling Sherry, and to say that Sherry is frugal is an understatement. But you learn a lot about your spouse when these things happen, and I got home and told her what I'd done. And what I heard from her was, aren't you grateful that we can help our friends? And that's after 30 years of marriage. I was sitting in my office one day and I got a call from a lady, and I was in the glass business, and she said, I have these mirrors and they have this black edge on them. You've all seen that black edge where the mirrors start to spoil around the edge. She said, I understand there's something I can do to fix that. And I said, well, there isn't anything to fix it, but there's some things that work real good. There's this product called beveled mirror strips, and you cut them to fit your mirror and paste them over the bad spots, and they look real pretty, and they work out real well. She said, oh, that's wonderful. She had an accent, but she spoke good English. She said, that's wonderful. She said, how hard are they to transport? And I said, well, they're real fragile. They're made out of glass, and they're pretty hard to ship. Where do you live? She laughed, and she said, Bombay. I said, Bombay. I said, you know, I've got some friends from there, and I was thinking of Callie and Banerjee, the past Rotary president. And I said, past Rotary president, and she said, oh, she said, my husband's a big Rotarian. She said, let you talk to him. So I got on the phone with Arshad Shah. We talked a little bit, and he found I was a past governor. He said, you know, I've got a couple of Paul Harris fellows to present, and I would like to do that. Could you help me with that? So I did. I lined up a club to present these Paul Harris fellows for him, and it was to his daughter, who lives in Dallas now, and to a doctor in town who was a very, very famous, well-known, probably the premier breast surgeon in town. Well, the story came out about this, that Harshad's club in India, people in India are very modest, and the women in particular are very modest, and they don't talk about things like breast cancer. But women are dying in inordinate numbers of breast cancer because they didn't have any early detection. And his club felt like they needed to do something about it. So they went together and they got a Rotary Foundation match to get a mobile mammogram machine to travel around Bombay. And it was a big deal. They all got together, Rotarians especially over there, loved to celebrate their successes, and they had a big deal going for the grand opening of this mammogram machine, and the women were all scared to go in. Well, Indira, Harshad's wife, was very tied to this event because he was the ramrodding it, and she had to be the sacrificial lamb to lead them all in there. So she had to go in to show them that it was all right. They found breast cancer in the first woman they checked, and it was Indira, the wife of Harshad Shah, and it saved her life. These Rotary events don't always have the same the same results that you think they might. Well, Harshad came to Dallas to visit his daughter, and we got to meet, and we got to be friends. And he sent a note back to me, and he says, you know, my Rotary Club is doing a project to work on fitting artificial limbs and doing polio corrective surgery, doing wheelchairs, helping 300 people with mobility issues. You know, India is very, very good at coming up with artificial limbs. They did that Jodhpur foot. They really do well. And he said, for $1,000, he said, I'd love to get your club to help with us. And I said, well, let me see what I can do. And we went to the club, and we did do a match with them on that, to do that event. He sent us back some pictures, and I'm going to show you some of these. The first one up here is some of the artificial limbs. Let's go to the next one. Here's more of them. Here they're fitting this artificial limb to this guy, putting the sock over his leg. And here he is standing up. This little girl had polio. They're doing braces to correct her polio. And there she is. This little girl apparently had no legs at all. Don't go on from here, Bill. Stop there. So 300 people our Rotary Club helped for $1,000. Very little investment. Money goes a long ways in places where people have nothing, and some of these people had nothing over there. It was our first international project with our club, and you know what? We all felt good about it. These people, if they would have had that problem in America, it would have been taken care of. There was a way to take care of it over here. Over there was no way to take care of it without Rotary. You know, Rotary travels around when they do these grants, and they don't just give them away. They give them, but they go check to make sure they're done right, and they're done. And over in Africa, they were doing a whole lot of water wells, and they had an auditor going around. One of the Rotary volunteers went around as an auditor to audit these programs. And she was speaking to us at a Zone Institute. She said, you know, I went to this village to audit this water well. And she said over there, if those of you that know that the women run the men might think they run the community, but the women run the community. So I went up to one of the lead women, and I asked her about it, and everything looked in order on the well. And I asked her, I said, has this well made a difference? Has it helped you people? And I'll never forget what she said. This lady said to our auditor, she said, when they built the well, the children quit dying. That's our Rotary Foundation. Orrin Bain was our international service chair when I was governor, and shortly after I was governor, he came to my club, and we were involved with the Wheelchair Foundation. Orrin was very involved with it. And he came to the club to promote it. He'd worked out a matching grant with the Rotary Foundation and also with Chevron Texaco. And he came to me before the meeting. He says, Pete, he says, you know, I'm going to talk about the Wheelchair Foundation. And I said, yeah, Orrin, I know that. He said, well, he said, you know, at the end of it, I'm going to ask for some money. I said, yeah, I expected you would. And he said, well, you know, I've found that when I get into a big room like this or a place with a meeting, he said, it's good to have somebody of prominence in that club to jump up and start the giving. And he looked me square in the eye. He says, you'll do that for me, won't you? Well, thanks, Orrin. I was feeling the pinch right then. You know, we're not always flush with money, and I wasn't at that time, but Orrin did a great job of talking about this. And, you know, with the Rotary Foundation match, we were from $150 a chair down to $75, and with the Chevron Texaco match, we were down to $37.50 per wheelchair, and they were going to send 2 container loads of these wheelchairs to Angola. Angola had so much problems with polio, with landmines, with wars. It was the most immobile country in the world. And I knew that Orrin was going over there. Well, Orrin had done a great job, so I'd written out this check. And I jumped up and I said, Orrin, you're going to Angola, aren't you? And he said, yeah, I am. I said, I'll give you this if you promise to give away one of those chairs special for me. And Orrin said, I'll do it. And I gave him a check for 10 wheelchairs. And I felt pretty good about it. Well, Orrin's shop wasn't real far from mine. And right after he got back, he came over to my office and he handed me a disc with some pictures. He said, let's sit down and look at these. And he started telling the story. When we got over to Angola, we were in the capital city. The container was going to go somewhere else, but as he told us, they stole 10 wheelchairs out of the container and put it in their van, and they proceeded to start driving around the city and see what was going on. And Orrin said, stop the van. They stopped the van. Now, Orrin's a good photographer, and he takes great pictures. And he pulled out his camera and he started shooting pictures. You can switch now.
I remember this picture.
Out in front of him was this guy with boards under his feet, basketball knee pads, inner tubes on his feet, scooting across the road in front of him. He looked both ways, and here he goes. The next picture. Gets to the medium, has trouble climbing over that. Keep on going. Crosses the street, has trouble getting his withered legs up over the curb. Next one. Finally gets up there. Orrin pulls over to the side, sticks his head out the window and says, hey buddy, how about a wheelchair? They sat him down on these steps. A crowd gathered around, and for the last time in his life, he took these inner tubes off his feet and set his boards down. They set him in the wheelchair, got everything aligned for him.
There was Chris in the background.
And off he goes. A man with hope and a new future. That's my wheelchair.
That's awesome.
Looking back at my last 24 years I've been at Rotary, I've been wondering what I could have done without it. You know, I looked at some things that we do. Could I have offered scholarships to local youth? Well, yeah, I probably could have, you know, through different groups I'm members of. Could I have helped the homeless, aided them to escape drugs, alcohol? Yeah, I could do that. I've participated with the Salvation Army for years and think very highly of them. Could I have given Christmas presents to youth in my community whose parents couldn't afford them or spent money for their children on drugs or alcohol? Yeah, I could have done that. Could I have mentored youth? I could have done that too. But I have to say all of those other things Rotary made easier for me. But you know, that's something, but is it enough? Could I have made friends all over the world who were willing to come to my aid if I needed it? And friends whose aid I was willing to come to if they needed it? Could I have been a part of the elimination of a deadly and crippling disease? And you know, when I first gave this talk, I was speaking to Lawrence Okwar and his wife was 8 months pregnant. She lives in Nigeria. And I was speaking to a lady that would be able to go home to Nigeria, bring her child up in a country that is now polio free because of us. Could I save lives by bringing safe drinking water to those that needed it? Could I have been part of the greatest group in the world to bring people together on a personal level to be better advocates for peace in the world? How many friends have you made that you now accept on a personal level, not just a cultural stereotype? How many lives have you changed for the better? How many people have you given a better chance for a better life for themselves? How many children have you saved from life as a cripple or worse? How many lives have you literally saved? You know, I thought back, and I think without Rotary and without the Rotary Foundation, I would have lived a very shallow life, and I wouldn't have known the difference. Rotary and the Rotary Foundation have made the impossible possible for me, and all of us that support the Rotary Foundation. The Rotary Foundation helped me make my life complete. I'm able to say now I truly made a difference. Thanks for listening to my stories. Peace on earth, goodwill to men.